The battlefield was silent, ashes floated in the air, burned metal still smoked, and broken ships lay like giant skeletons across the ground. The war had ended here only hours ago, but the land already looked like a graveyard. No soldiers remained. Only silence and ruins. In the middle of this silence, something small moved. It was no soldier, no machine, no weapon. It was a tiny furry creature, no bigger than a child's bag, with large round eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. Its fur was silver blue, soft but tangled with dust, and it limped as if its legs could no longer carry it. The creature made a weak sound, almost like a whimper, a voice no one would care to hear. The armies had left, humans had gone, aliens had gone, and only this fragile being remained. It had been left behind, abandoned by those who should have protected it. Perhaps it was too weak or too small, or simply useless in a galaxy that valued strength over kindness. The creature staggered toward the ruins of a broken transport. Inside, it searched for food but found only scraps of metal and shattered glass. Its belly growled, its throat ached with thirst, yet it continued to search. The galaxy had no pity for small things. Then heavy footsteps echoed on the scorched ground. The creature froze, its tiny ears twitching. From the smoke, a tall figure appeared, a man in scarred armor, carrying a heavy rifle across his back. He was a human mercenary, one of the last still wandering the ruins after the war. His armor was dented, his face covered with dust, and his eyes were sharp and cold. He looked like someone who had seen too much death to care about life anymore. The mercenary stopped when he noticed the creature. At first, he thought it was only another scavenger, perhaps a rat or pest. But then he saw its large eyes staring up at him, not with anger, not with fear, but with a strange mix of sadness and hope. The creature trembled but did not run. Perhaps it was too weak to move, or perhaps it had already given up. The mercenary frowned. He had fought across dozens of worlds. He had killed aliens twice his size, and he had seen children cry on burning planets. Yet this small thing made him pause. It was not a warrior, not a prize, not even a threat. It was simply alive, and it wanted to keep living. He raised his boot, as if to step past it. Why should he waste time, he thought. He was no hero, no savior, only a man who fought for money. The galaxy was cruel, and creatures like this were crushed every day. He owed it nothing. But the creature made a sound again, a soft cry, almost like the call of a newborn. It echoed against the ruins and reached the mercenary's ears like a whisper from another life. For a moment, he remembered his own childhood, a battlefield where no one came for him, a memory he had buried long ago. He turned away, cursing under his breath, but the sound followed him. The creature tried to move closer, dragging its weak legs, falling, then standing again. It did not stop. It did not beg with words, but its eyes spoke clearly. It did not want to be alone. The mercenary gritted his teeth. He told himself to keep walking, to leave it, yet his hand twitched and his steps slowed. The silence of the battlefield pressed against him, and the creature's small cry filled it. He could feel his chest tightening. Though he did not understand why, finally, he stopped. The mercenary looked back at the tiny creature, still staring at him, still waiting. His face hardened, but his eyes softened. He muttered, "Damn it," under his breath. Slowly, he walked back and crouched down, his armor creaking. The creature blinked, unsure. It waited as his gloved hand reached forward. Would this human kill it, or would he save it? The air was heavy with silence, as if the entire ruined battlefield held its breath. The mercenary's hand hovered, then gently touched the creature's fur. It was softer than he expected, warmer too. The creature leaned against his hand, shivering, but not from fear. For the first time since the war, the mercenary felt something stir in his chest, not anger, not hate, but something dangerously close to care. He lifted the creature carefully, placing it against his chest plate. It made a faint sound, then curled up, trusting him instantly. The mercenary sighed, half annoyed, half relieved. He stood up again. The small creature held firmly in his arms. The battlefield was still silent. But now he was no longer alone. He looked at the horizon. Smoke still rising, stars still hidden. A thought crossed his mind. This small thing might bring trouble. Perhaps enemies would come. Perhaps danger would follow, but for some reason. He could not explain. He did not care. He began to walk, carrying the abandoned creature away from the ruins. Each step echoed against the broken land, and in those steps, a new story had begun. Asterisk. The mercenary ship was an old freighter, patched with steel plates and marked with scars from battles long past. It was a lonely ship, built only for survival, carrying weapons, rations, and little else, when he carried the small furry creature. Inside, the cold lights flickered across the metal walls. This was not a place for warmth, not a place for life. Yet the creature blinked its big eyes and looked around as if it had found a home. The mercenary dropped it gently onto a crate. "Stay there," he muttered, his voice rough. He told himself he had only picked it up because leaving it behind felt wrong, nothing more. He was not a savior, not a caretaker, just a man who worked for credits. He turned away, pretending the creature did not matter. But the creature did not stay quiet. It followed him with small steps, its tiny paws tapping on the metal floor. When he moved to check his weapons, it peeked from the edge of the table. Eyes wide, when he strapped on his armor, it climbed onto his boot, refusing to let go. The mercenary sighed, annoyed, but he did not push it away. There was something stubborn about this fragile life. At night, the ship drifted through silent space. The mercenary sat in his chair, staring at the endless stars, his rifle leaning against the wall. The creature climbed onto his lap without asking, curling up like it belonged there. He froze, ready to shove it off, but something in its steady breathing held him still. For the first time in years, he felt the ship less empty. Days passed, and the creature became part of his routine. It hid in the storage crates, chewed at old wires, and once nearly activated the navigation system by pressing glowing buttons. The mercenary yelled, his voice echoing through the metal corridors. But when the creature lowered its ears and made a soft cry, he found himself unable to stay angry. He gave it scraps of dried food. Even though he told himself it was a waste, he caught himself talking to it in the quiet, small words he thought he had forgotten long ago. The mercenary had been alone for years. He fought wars that were not his, killed strangers for money, and trusted no one. People betrayed, soldiers lied, commanders used men like tools. But this creature had no lies, no mask, no agenda. It simply stayed close, asking nothing, giving everything in the way it looked at him. One evening, as the ship glided past a burning asteroid field, another mercenary squad hailed his channel. Their leader, a scarred alien with sharp teeth, sneered on the screen. "We heard you picked up a useless pet," he said, laughing. The mercenary grunted. "It's nothing." The alien leaned closer, his voice cruel. "That thing will get you killed. Humans are weak when they care. Remember that." The connection cut, leaving silence. The mercenary's jaw tightened. He told himself he didn't care what others thought, but their words stayed with him. He looked down at the creature, now asleep in a corner, tiny chest rising and falling slowly. Was he making the mistake by keeping it? The galaxy punished weakness, and this bond could cost him his life. That night, the mercenary dreamed again. He saw flames, a ruined colony, his own younger self hiding under rubble. He remembered the sound of soldiers walking past, ignoring him, leaving him to die. When he woke, his chest was heavy, his breath sharp. The creature climbed onto him, placing its head against his arm. The warmth was small but steady, and slowly the fear faded. He stared into its eyes and whispered, "You don't even know what you're doing, do you?" The days grew longer, and something inside the mercenary began to shift. He started keeping an extra ration pack, not for himself but for the creature. He made space in his quarters, putting an old blanket in the corner. Though the creature always chose to sleep closer to him, he even found himself humming once. sound he had not made in years, when the creature tilted its head and chirped. But the galaxy does not ignore those who find comfort. On the edge of a star system, danger came. A pirate signal locked onto his ship, weapons hot, engines burning. Bright, the mercenary cursed it and rushed to his seat, pulling controls, preparing for battle. The creature clung to his boot. Frightened but unwilling to leave his side, the ship shook as blasts hit the hull. Alarms screamed, and the mercenary tightened his grip on the controls. He fought like the soldier he had always been. But the pirates were too many. Then something unexpected happened. The creature, trembling, climbed onto the control panel. It pressed a glowing button, when the mercenary had left armed but forgotten. A hidden turret deployed, firing into the pirates with a storm of light. One ship exploded, another spun out of control. The mercenary stared in shock. The creature had saved him, even if by accident. When the pirates retreated, his ship floated. Bruised but alive, he sat back in his chair, breathing hard, looking at the tiny furry being sitting proudly on the console. For the first time he laughed, a short, rough sound he barely recognized as his own. "You're trouble," he said, shaking his head. "But maybe you're my kind of trouble." The creature chirped again, tilting its head, and for the first time, the mercenary gave it a name simple, rough, yet filled with meaning. It was no longer just a creature, it was his companion. But somewhere in the dark, far from his ship, whispers began to spread. The pirates who escaped carried stories of a human mercenary traveling with a rare creature. Eyes in the galaxy turned toward him, and dangers he could not yet imagine began to move. The mercenary did not know it, but the bond he had formed was about to change everything. Asterisk. The mercenary's ship drifted through the void, its engines humming softly. The small furry creature now had a place on board, curled in a blanket near the pilot's chair. The mercenary still told himself it was only a passenger, nothing more. But every time he looked down and saw those bright eyes, he knew he was lying. He had given it a name, a sound that felt strange on his tongue after so many years of silence. The creature tilted its head whenever he spoke it, as if it understood. The galaxy, however, did not forgive such attachments. Whispers spread quickly, faster than light. The pirates who had fled told stories of a mercenary with a strange companion. Some laughed, but others remembered the legends. Legends of a species once hunted, not because they were strong, but because they carried secrets inside them, secrets that could change battles, or perhaps even wars. The mercenary did not yet know this truth. All he knew was that danger seemed to follow him now. Ships tracked him longer than before. Deals fell apart when his name appeared, and bounty hunters started asking too many questions. He tightened the locks on his ship, kept his rifle closer, and slept with one eye open. The creature stayed near him, unaware of the storm building in the shadows. It began one silent night when the stars outside seemed too still. The mercenary sat at the console, scanning routes, when an alarm flashed red. An unknown vessel was tailing them. No signal, no ID, only the cold shadow of a predator in the dark. He muttered under his breath, switching off the main lights. Drifting into the shadows of a nearby asteroid belt, the creature stirred, sensing his unease. Its ears twitching, its body trembling. He placed a hand on it without thinking, whispering, "Quiet now." Though his own heart beat fast, the hostile ship moved closer, cutting off escape. It fired a warning shot, a streak of fire across the black. The mercenary cursed, hands flying over the controls. But the old freighter was no match for hunters built for war. He prepared his weapons, but he knew the truth. This fight might end here. A voice crackled over the comm, sharp and cruel. "Hand over the creature," the voice said. "And you, walk away alive." The mercenary froze, his jaw tightening. So it was true. They weren't here for him. They were here for the small life he carried. He looked at the creature, which pressed closer to him, eyes wide and trusting. He felt something twist inside his chest, a weight heavier than armor. "I don't know what you think I've got." He growled back. The voice laughed, cold and certain. "We know, human. Give it up, or your blood will paint the stars." The mercenary switched off the channel, his face like stone. He had lived his whole life surviving by choosing the easy path, but now, for reasons he could not explain, he refused to let go. The hunters attacked, beams of light tearing through the dark. The ship shook violently, alarms blaring, metal screaming under fire. The mercenary fought back with every weapon the freighter carried, missiles streaking, cannons burning. But he was outnumbered. The creature clung to him, not hiding but watching, as if it could feel the storm inside his chest. The mercenary shouted commands to the ship, his voice echoing in the metal halls. Every move he made was sharp, desperate, fueled not by money, but by the thought of losing this small companion. Then it happened. One blast tore through the side of the ship, systems sparking, fire spreading through the corridor. The mercenary staggered, gripping the controls, his vision blurring from smoke. The hunters closed in, circling like predators ready to strike the final blow. He whispered through clenched teeth, "Not today." But his weapons were failing. His ship breaking apart and hope slipping away, the creature suddenly moved, scrambling up onto the console. Its small paws touched glowing panels, pressing symbols the mercenary had never used. For a moment he tried to shove it away, but then the ship responded. Hidden systems roared to life. Shields he had never known activated. Energy pulsed through the freighter like a heart reborn. The hunters fired, but their beams broke against a sudden wall of light. The mercenary stared in disbelief as his ship, once old and weak, now burned with new strength. The creature's eyes glowed faintly, its body trembling. It had awakened something in the ship, or perhaps inside itself. The mercenary realized then. This was no ordinary being. It was rare, powerful, and now the galaxy would never stop hunting for it. With a growl, he slammed controls and fired. The freighter surged forward, weapons blazing with a force the hunters had not expected. Two ships fell quickly, torn apart by sudden power. The others pulled back in shock. The mercenary chased them into the dark, his blood roaring, until finally they vanished into hyperspace. Silence returned, broken only by the crackle of damaged systems. Breathing hard, he looked down at the creature. It was weak, drained, its glow fading, but its eyes still held trust. He lifted it gently, whispering words he did not know he remembered. Words of comfort. The creature curled against him, shivering, yet alive. He knew then that this bond was no accident. This was the beginning of something larger, something dangerous. Something that could change not just his life, but perhaps the galaxy itself. He leaned back in his chair, smoke still rising around him. His voice was low, but steady. "They want you because you're special." He paused, looking into the stars beyond, his grip tightening on the creature. "Well then, let them come," he said, "because they'll have to go through me first." And with those words, the mercenary's fate was sealed. The tiny creature had become more than a burden, more than a companion. It was now his reason to fight, his reason to live, and somewhere in the galaxy, enemies prepared for the day they would face him again. The first threat had come and gone, but greater storms were already on their way. The ship limped through the emptiness of space, its hull still scarred from the battle. The mercenary had managed to repair the engines, but the cracks in the metal and the smell of burnt circuits reminded him of how close he had come to death. He sat in silence at the controls, one hand gripping the edge of the chair, the other resting on the small creature curled up beside him. It was weak, its fur damp with sweat, its glow dim, as if the fight had drained every bit of energy from its body. For hours he watched it breathe, steady but fragile. Questions churned in his mind, questions he could not ignore. What was this creature? Why did it awaken systems he had never touched? Why did enemies hunt it? And why did its presence feel like a shield against the darkness in his own heart? He was a mercenary. He had lived his life by knowing the value of things, weapons, ships, lives, and this creature clearly had a value beyond imagination. But it was not just about value anymore. When he looked at it, He did not see treasure. He did not see a weapon. He saw a being that had chosen him. That choice meant more than any contract, any bounty, any war he had fought. Still, he needed answers. The galaxy was not kind to mysteries, and ignorance could kill. So he plotted a course to a hidden station, a place where mercenaries whispered about old knowledge and forbidden truths. It was dangerous, but danger was already chasing him. The station was built into the remains of an asteroid. Its halls dark, its people secretive. The mercenary walked through the narrow corridors with the creature tucked inside his coat. Its small head peeking out, eyes followed him, suspicious. Greedy, curious, he ignored them, his boots heavy on the iron floor, until he reached the one place he trusted. An old data broker who had once been a friend. The broker was an alien with long fingers and eyes like polished stone. He grinned when he saw the mercenary. "You don't come here unless you need something impossible," the mercenary grunted, dropping a pouch of credits on the table. "Tell me what this is," he said, pulling the creature into the light. The broker's grin vanished. His eyes widened, his voice lowered to a whisper. "You brought that here." The room seemed to grow colder, and even the shadows leaned closer. "What is it?" the mercenary demanded, his hand resting near his rifle. The broker hesitated, then spoke. "Long ago, before you were born, there was a species known as the Lume. They were small, harmless in appearance, but they carried power unlike any other. A power not of weapons or machines, but of the mind. They could touch thoughts, heal fear, bend emotions, even awaken hidden strength in those around them." The mercenary's eyes narrowed. He looked at the creature, now blinking innocently at him, unaware of the storm it carried. "And why did everyone abandon them?" he asked. The broker's face grew grim. "Because they were too dangerous to control. Every empire wanted them, every syndicate hunted them, and in the end, they were wiped out, or so we believed." Silence filled the room. The mercenary felt the weight of the truth pressing down on him. This tiny companion was the last of its kind, a survivor of a genocide hidden by time. And now he was carrying it across a galaxy that would kill him to take it. The broker leaned forward, his voice sharp. "Do you know what it means, human, to keep it? It means death, not just for you, but for anyone who stands near you. They will come, armies, pirates, governments, all of them. They will burn worlds to claim what you carry." The mercenary's hand tightened on the creature. It nuzzled against him, unaware of the fear in the broker's words. For a moment, he thought of leaving it, dropping it here, letting someone else take the burden. But when he looked into its eyes, he saw trust. Blind and unshaken, that trust was more than he deserved, but it was his, and he would not break it. "I don't care," the mercenary said at last, his voice low, steady, unshakable. "I've seen armies, I've seen death. Let them come. They'll find out I'm not so easy to kill." The broker sighed, shaking his head. "Then you have chosen your path." He pushed the credits back across the table. "You'll need these more than me. Old friend, may your bond save you, or destroy you." The mercenary left the station, his mind heavy but his steps certain. On the ship, the creature rested against him, humming a soft sound that eased the storm inside his chest. He realized then that it had been healing him all along, pulling him away from nightmares, steadying his hand when doubt threatened to break it. It was not just a rare creature. It was a companion that made him more than he had been. As the ship lifted into the stars once more, the mercenary whispered, "So, you're the last of the Lume." The creature chirped softly, as if answering. Though it could not understand the weight of his words, he set a new course, away from the station, away from safety, deeper into the unknown. Because he knew the truth now, the galaxy would never stop chasing them. But he also knew something else, something far more dangerous. He would never let it go. Not while he still drew breath. And as the stars stretched into lines and the ship leapt into hyperspace, the mercenary tightened his grip on the controls. His life had been one of survival, empty and cold, but now, with the secret of the creature burning in his chest, he felt something he had not felt in years: purpose. The mercenary's ship cut through hyperspace, stars stretching into white rivers around him. The small creature, the last of the Lume, slept in the corner, curled against an old blanket, its soft breathing steady. But the mercenary did not rest. His eyes stayed sharp on the console, his fingers tense on the controls. He knew now what he carried, and he knew the galaxy would never leave him in peace. He had fought men, aliens, pirates, even soldiers in wars that burned planets, but this was different. This was not just survival for himself. This was protection for something that could not fight for itself. And for the first time in his life, he was not fighting for money or orders, but for a bond he could not explain. That bond made him stronger, but it also painted a target on his back. It did not take long for the hunters to return. Whispers became signals, signals became fleets, and soon he felt eyes on him wherever he went. When he docked at small stations, strangers watched too closely. Merchants asked too many questions, and silent figures followed him down narrow halls. He never stayed long, never let the creature out of his sight, never trusted a smile or a friendly hand one night. As his ship drifted through the dark edges of a nebula, the alarms screamed. Enemy ships appeared out of the mist, black silhouettes glowing with red engines. They had tracked him even here, where no maps existed. The mercenary cursed, pulling the creature close before strapping himself into the pilot's chair. The chase had begun. Lasers cut through the purple mist, burning trails of fire around the ship. He dived low, twisting the freighter between clouds of gas and shards of rock. The old ship groaned under pressure, its engines straining, but his hands were steady. The creature clung to his shoulder, trembling but silent, its wide eyes glowing faintly. The mercenary whispered, "Hold on, little one. We're not done yet." The hunters pursued like wolves, their ships sleek and deadly. One by one they closed in, weapons locking, their voices filling the cum with cruel demands. "Hand it over, human," one hissed. "You cannot run forever. No mercenary is worth dying for a beast." The mercenary ignored them, teeth clenched, his focus sharp as a blade. He guided the ship into a narrow passage of asteroids, where even one mistake meant death. Rocks smashed against the hull, sparks flew across the cockpit, alarms screamed louder. But the mercenary flew with precision born from years of war. The hunters were skilled, but they did not know the way he did. He turned sharp corners, slid between stones that could crush him flat, and every move cut another pursuer off his tail. The creature pressed its tiny head against his neck, calming his heartbeat even in the chaos. Still, more came, wave after wave. He fired back, cannons blazing, missiles streaking through the dark. 2 enemy ships exploded in fire, their lights swallowed by the mist, but more replaced them. It felt endless, a chase without escape, and the mercenary knew this was only the beginning. As the battle raged, a new signal cracked over his cum. This voice was not cruel like the hunters, but heavy, commanding. "Human mercenary, we know what you carry. Surrender it to us and we will spare you." The symbol on the screen made his chest tighten. It was not pirates, not bounty hunters. It was an empire's mark, one of the great powers of the galaxy. They had learned of the Lume, and now they wanted it. The mercenary's jaw hardened. He had once fought for empires, killed for their credits, bled for their false promises. He had seen how they used lives like weapons and then discarded them. Now they wanted the creature, and he knew what they would do. They would cage it, drain it, break it until nothing remained. He whispered to the sleeping creature, "I won't let them touch you, not while I breathe." The chase stretched for hours, through burning fields of debris, through storms of lightning in space, through ruins of forgotten stations. The mercenary fought with everything he had, dodging, firing, pushing his ship beyond its limits. Every moment was a gamble, every second a battle against the odds. But he was alive, and the creature was alive, and that was enough to keep him going. At last, he pulled free from the nebula into open space. The stars spread wide before him, cold and endless, but for the moment, no ships followed. The mercenary leaned back, sweat dripping down his face. His breath heavy, the creature stirred, blinking up at him, then curling once more into the blanket. Safe, he reached out and touched its fur gently, a rare softness in his calloused hand. "You're more trouble than a fleet of enemies," he muttered, but his voice carried something else too, pride. Yet he knew this was only the start. The hunters would return, the Empire would send more, and soon the entire galaxy would rise against him. The chase would never end, not until they had torn the Lume from his arms. But the mercenary was not afraid. For the first time in his life, he had something worth protecting, and he would fight every star, every empire, every enemy that came. For it. As the ship sailed into the dark, the mercenary's eyes burned with fire. The chase across the stars had begun, and it would not end until either he fell, or the galaxy learned why humans never surrendered those they called their own. The mercenary ship drifted through the black void, its hull scarred and smoking after the long chase. He had escaped the hunters, escaped the Empire's scouts. But deep in his heart, he knew it would not last. The galaxy had tasted the rumor of the Lume, and now it was hungry. There would be no peace, no safe harbor. Not while the creature still breathed beside him. He sat in the pilot's chair, staring at the stars, his hand resting on the rifle at his side. The creature lay against his chest, its tiny body rising and falling, its soft glow returning bit by bit. Every time he looked at it, something heavy and sharp inside him softened. He had been a soldier, a killer, a mercenary who sold his life to the highest bidder, but now, for the first time, he had something to live for. And something worth dying for. The warnings came 3 days later. First, a shadow on his scanners, too large for pirates, too silent for traitors. Then, multiple signals, surrounding him like wolves around a wounded animal. And finally, the truth appeared on his screen. An armada from the Syndicate, the same Empire-backed hunters who had sworn to take the creature. The mercenary muttered under his breath, his eyes narrowing. So it's come to this. The fleet did not hail him with words this time. Instead, they fired. Beams of fire streaking through the black, shaking his ship until alarms screamed. He turned sharply, his hands dancing over controls, weapons blazing back. But for every enemy he struck down, more appeared. The sky lit up like a burning sea, and he was only one man against a storm. The creature stirred, sensing the chaos, its glow brightening in fear and in instinct. It climbed onto the console, pressing its small paws against the ship. The mercenary shouted, "No, stay back," but it ignored him. Light rippled across the panels, the old freighter answering with strength it did not have before. Shields grew thicker, weapons burned brighter, and the ship roared like it was alive. The mercenary glanced at the creature, and for the first time, he realized it was not just surviving with him. It was fighting with him. The battle raged across the dead planet below, a world reduced to ashes long ago. The mercenary guided his ship down through the broken atmosphere, drawing the hunters closer. If he was going to fall, he would not fall running. He would stand where no one else remained. The ship landed hard among the ruins, dust rising in clouds. The mercenary grabbed his rifle, strapping on armor, his face hard as stone. He looked at the creature, still glowing faintly, and whispered, "Stay close, little one. This is where we make our stand." The enemy descended like rain, soldiers in dark armor, ships settling on the cracked ground. The ruins filled with the sound of metal boots and weapons ready to fire. A voice echoed through a loudspeaker, cold and sharp, "Human, surrender the Lume, and you may yet live." The mercenary stepped into the open, rifle in hand, his shadow long against the broken walls. His voice cut through the silence, steady and fierce. "If you want it, you'll have to take it from me." The first shots came, beams of energy tearing through the air. The mercenary fired back, every shot clean, every move sharp. He moved with the skill of a man who had survived 100 battles, ducking behind walls, striking with precision. The creature stayed near him, its glow spreading wider, wrapping him in a strange calm even as the world burned around them. Enemies fell, one by one, but more kept coming. The sky filled with smoke. The ground shook with fire. Then the moment came. The mercenary was pinned down. Too many soldiers pressing from every side. His rifle overheated, his breath heavy, blood running down his arm. He thought it was the end, until the creature leapt forward, standing between him and the enemy. Its glow erupted, no longer faint, but blinding, pure. Waves of light spread across the battlefield, rippling like water. Soldiers froze mid-strike, their weapons trembling, their anger fading into silence. The mercenary stared in awe as the creature's power flowed across the ruins. It was not destruction. It was not fire or blood. It was peace. The enemies dropped their weapons, their hands shaking as fear left them. Replaced by calm, some fell to their knees, unable to continue the fight. The creature's eyes glowed like stars, and for a brief moment, the battlefield grew quiet. But the effort was too much. The creature staggered, its glow flickering, its tiny body weak. The mercenary caught it, holding it close, whispering, "Easy, easy, you've done enough." He looked around, seeing soldiers retreat, ships pulling back, none willing to face the strange power they had just witnessed. The battle was not won by blood, but by something greater, something the galaxy had long forgotten. The mercenary stood in the ruins, his rifle still ready, his armor broken, but his heart burning. He looked at the fading glow in his arms, the small beam that had turned the tide, and he knew, without question, that this was not just a fight for survival anymore. This was a war for the future. If the galaxy learned the truth of the Lume, it could either fall into chaos or rise into something better. The mercenary raised his head, his voice low but fierce. "They'll come again, stronger, but let them. We'll face them together." The creature, weak but alive, nestled against his chest, its tiny sound answering him. In that moment, among the ruins, the mercenary was no longer just a killer, no longer just a man for hire. He was a guardian, standing between the galaxy and those who would break it. And as the stars burned above, he prepared for the final chapter of their fight. The battlefield was silent again. Smoke curled from shattered walls, dust hung in the air, and the ruins whispered with echoes of what had just passed. The mercenary stood among the wreckage, his armor cracked, his rifle heavy in his hand, but in his arms, the tiny creature stirred, alive, glowing faintly, fragile but unbroken. He looked down at it, brushing ash from its silver-blue fur. "You did this," he whispered, his voice low, almost in disbelief. "You stopped them, not me." The creature blinked slowly, leaning against him as if it understood. In its weakness there was trust. And in that trust, the mercenary found a strength he had never known before. The syndicate ships pulled back into the sky, their soldiers retreating in fear of the light they could not control. For the first time in years, the mercenary had not just survived a battle, he had ended it. Not with bullets, not with blood, but with something he did not even believe existed anymore. Hope. But he knew this peace would not last. The galaxy was vast, greedy, and filled with predators who would never forget the Lume. What happened here would spread like wildfire, whispers becoming stories, stories becoming hunts. The mercenary could already see it. Fleets preparing, governments debating, bounty boards lighting up with his name. He would never be safe again, not truly. Yet when he looked at the creature, curled against his chest, he did not feel fear. He felt purpose. He had been a soldier with no cause, a killer for hire, a shadow in other people's wars. Now he was something else, something he never thought he could be, a protector. He repaired the ship as best he could, patching holes, welding metal with steady hands. The old freighter groaned, but still held together. The creature followed him, stumbling on tiny legs, chirping softly whenever sparks flew. It had almost died on that battlefield, but its spirit was stronger than steel. The mercenary found himself talking to it more, words spilling out as if silence had lost its hold on him. "You're not just a burden. he muttered once. "You're the reason I'm still breathing." When the ship finally lifted off, the ruins fell away beneath them. The stars stretched wide and endless, cold and unforgiving, yet no longer empty. The mercenary sat in the pilot's chair, the creature climbing into his lap, glowing faintly as if it belonged there. He stared into the dark and made a vow, not to himself, but to the being beside him. "No matter who comes, no matter what it costs, I'll keep you safe." Days turned into weeks, and word of him spread further. Some called him a fool, a mercenary who had thrown away credits for a useless beast. Others called him dangerous, a man carrying a weapon of the mind. But a few, in hidden corners of the galaxy, began to whisper a different story. A story of a human who carried hope in his arms, a human who chose loyalty over greed. The mercenary did not chase these rumors. He did not care for fame. What mattered was the bond he carried, the silent companionship that filled the hollow space in his life. At night, when nightmares clawed at him, the creature's glow soothed him, driving away the ghosts of war. In battles, its presence steadied his aim, sharpened his focus, and reminded him why he fought. He was no longer a weapon pointed by others. He was a shield, standing for something greater. One evening, as the ship floated on the edge of a crimson nebula, the mercenary sat with the creature in his arms. He watched it sleep, tiny chest rising and falling, its soft hum filling the silence. For the first time in years he smiled, not a bitter smile, not a cruel grin, but something real. It was small, fragile, but real. He thought of what lay ahead. The endless chases, the battles yet to come, the powerful enemies who would stop at nothing. And yet, for the first time, he was not afraid, because he was no longer running from death. He was running toward life. The creature had given him something priceless, a reason. He leaned back in his chair, whispering softly. "We'll make our own path." The creature stirred, chirped once, then nestled deeper against him. The mercenary's hand rested on its fur, rough fingers trembling as if holding the most precious thing in the galaxy. Outside, the stars shimmered like endless eyes watching. The galaxy would hunt him, test him, try to break him. But the mercenary had already made his choice. He was no longer just a soldier of fortune, no longer just a man drifting from war to war. He was a guardian, a companion, and maybe even a legend in the making. And so the ship vanished into hyperspace, carrying with it 2 lives bound together. By fate, one a hardened human mercenary, scarred but unbroken. The other a tiny creature once abandoned, now the heart of something greater. Together they stepped into a future unknown, a new beginning written among the stars.